Thank you so much. This is our last panel during the day. My name is Ahmet Tekelioglu. I'm the editor-in-chief for Meydan and research fellow with the center. So this panel is the Muslim American Experience panel. We have 3 speakers. We are first going to get started with Dr. Aminah Al-Deen, who is the director of the Black American Muslim Internationalism Project at George Mason University. Let me briefly introduce you to her. Her bio is really extensive, so I'm going to quickly walk through that. Dr. Aminah Al-Deen is a professor of Emerita and Islamic Studies at DePaul University, where she was the founding director of the first undergraduate Islamic World Studies program. This was also the first program in the US. This was back in 2006. She's a leading voice in Islamic scholarship. She's a senior Fulbright scholar, former editor-in-chief of the Journal of Islamic Law and Culture, and host of Critical Talk on Muslim Network TV. Dr. Aminah's research is on Black American Muslims broadly and connecting issues, and she serves on the boards of organizations like Iman in Chicago, Sound Vision, Muslim Mental Health, Muslim Arc, Greenwood Policy Institute, and she is also BRIL's Muslim Minorities in the West Series board. Dr. Al-Deen leads, as I've mentioned, the Black American Muslim Internationalism Project as the project director and principal investigator at the Abu Sulayman Center for Global Islamic Studies here at George Mason. She'll talk more about the project, so I'll not go into details, but her publications include in 1995, African American Islam, Transnational Muslims in American Society, published in 2006, and in 2013, An Introduction to Islam in the 21st Century, among other publications. Dr. Aminah, it's our pleasure and honor to welcome you. I will be sharing the slides from this side for the presentation.
Assalamu alaikum and hello to everybody. It is such a pleasure to be with all of you on this wonderful Jummah. The sky is blue here in Maryland and the weather is great. I thought in introducing this particular project, and let me thank my cohorts, especially Dr. Ahmed, in assisting me with all of the technology involved here, and Robert is coming on a little bit later. I love technology, but the feelings are not mutual. In this Black American Muslim Internationalism Project, we were kind of restricted by the grant to the East Coast, but the various physical and manuscript and other kinds of evidence of a Black American Muslim presence in the United States is across the country, but we will just look at a few. Can you post the first slide? That's not the first slide. That's the last. Okay, if you look at this monument, and if you haven't been, you should go. It's in Annapolis, Maryland. It is the first American monument, and if you go, you see these Roman-looking people, but look closely, go to the next one. And what you'll see are the, I don't know what you call these, I call them sculptures, of 3 Muslims featured on this Tripoli monument. And what they are representing is the U.S. engagement in the Barbary Wars with North Africa, which the U.S., lost, but it was one of its first engagements, not only with the Muslim world, but with the world outside of Europe. It's important because of the fact that it has not been torn down. Many Muslims in the country don't know it's there. And it's important to go and see what it is, because the United States and its history with Muslim majority states is as long as this country is old. I mean, Benjamin Franklin was captured in one of these sailings and wrote some horrible things about Muslims, although he was treated well. Can we go to the next slide? Here in the halls of justice, for those of you who are in or near Washington, D.C., is, and I hate to call it a depiction, but that is kind of what it is, of the Prophet Muhammad amongst the lawgivers. And he has a Quran in his hand. Unfortunately, there's also a, what do you call that? Sword. But nevertheless, he was considered by the person who did this as a lawgiver. Now, there's been some controversy surrounding it, but there is also simultaneously an acknowledgement, along with the fact that Thomas Jefferson owned a Quran, which he kept in his house. I had the privilege of seeing that in a very interesting constructed house. But let's move along here. In the BAMI project, what we first did in October of 2022 was I asked Professor Edward Curtis, who is a well-known writer on African American Muslims. He himself is neither African American nor Muslim. He's a Protestant Lebanese Christian. But he has made his mark in looking at Muslim communities. And so here was an attempt to bring together the scholars who are writing on Islam, researching on Islam, and you can see them, Bashir Muhammad down in the lower left-hand side, who is our Muslim at Pew, Elena Morgan, Suad Abdul Kabir, Sherman Jackson, Sylvester Johnson, Yusuf Carter, who is also an advisor to the BAMI project, and Bilal Ware, who's out in California, but who just also got through running for vice president in the last election. And Gregory Abdullah Mitchell, who is the chairperson, I don't see him, who is the chairperson of the Council on Islamic Organizations in Chicago. One of the primary issues is Africans were brought to this country to be enslaved and to provide economic wealth. The problem is that they were brought from many different tribes, although most of those tribes, I'll put it like that, were on the west coast of Africa. But prior to that, Africans have been brought from the east coast of Africa and central to that west coast. So you have representatives of many different tribes. And the issue became, what do you call them? If you look at the folk here, you see folks who are mixed race. You see Suad Abdul Kabir, who is Jamaican, American. You see the issues, and if Ahmed could play quickly a clip.
I think one of a number of us who study African American Muslim history and life have tried to do is to add to that and show just how ubiquitous Black Muslim internationalism is as an expression.
Can you hear?
Yeah.
With where white supremacy was. It wants you
offshoot, in a kind of segregated, offshoot, in the same way that Garvey was intensely radical, and also fulfilling the dream of,
Can the audience hear something I can't hear?
Yes.
Africa, right? We have that radical imaginary, the nation state, and
I can't see the clip either.
Sorry, give me 1 second.
Huh?
1 second, Dr. Amina. We are.
Oh, here. I think Dr. Share.
Those nations are not necessarily states, and that's useful to remember.
Can this be heard now?
Online.
Can this be heard by online audiences?
Trying to think about how they're overlapping their intention. But one of the things we have to do going forward, and I heard your question that we're asking
Can't hear.
study on, or what
We are trying to address Dr. Amina. Give us 1 second, please. I think it's here.
How did you find it?
Oh, some.
Yeah, it should be. There's no many slides. But you go to share screen slides maybe. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Ahmed and Robert, I don't want to take time away from the other panelists. We can continue on if we can't get this.
Yeah, Dr. Amina, you can continue. The audio room here can hear. For online audiences, we'll try to figure out down the line. But why don't we, do you want me to go back to the presentation? I think this is a quick sense of the Zoom meeting for this meeting is here.
But I just...
Why don't we do that?
Okay. Let's just, I will kind of in summary say that there were in in American history, there have been efforts to homogenize the descendants of slaves, calling them Negro, colored, black, and African American. The descendants of slaves ourselves have taken issue with all of those, all of that nomenclature, because many are mixed. Many like to have their origins put into any name. But here's where we started. And this webinar has spurred lots of conversations in African American communities across the continent of the United States. Can we go to the next one? We decided that we were having trouble in an aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic in coaxing people out of their homes. Many were sick or had just recovered from COVID themselves. So we tried to think of a way to include both the young and the old, and in a historic masjid, the Muhammad's Masjid there in Washington, D.C., which is now under renovation, and we're called it Transferring Legacies. And here we had some of the people who had been with the Nation of Islam, some who were stalwart followers of Wardi Muhammad, and those in general in the community. This was the first ever town hall meeting that Masjid Muhammad ever had. We had a large crowd. Some folk came from Georgia Mesa, which was wonderful. And the conversation was about experiences. Some were imams, some were community leaders, some were just community members. If you see down there on the bottom row, you have Fitra Muhammad, who runs Study Al-Islam, which has a program on every Sunday at 10 o'clock Eastern Time. Can we go to the next one? Here in Philadelphia, which was another of our target spots, the issues were a little more testy. In the African American community, Muslim communities, of which there are at least 11 different ones, we represented and brought together, which has never been done before, Ahmadi Muslims, Nation of Islam Muslims, or the Muhammad Muslims, Darul Islam Muslims, and some Shia Muslims, and some Sufi Muslims. I had the privilege of having Ahmed and his young son there with me, and Ahmed was doing all the videography. Can we do a little, does the link work for this one?
We are trying now, Dr. Aminah.
I think I found some instructions for how to.
I think you got the.
Is the audio recorded for this one? If you stop share and then hit reshare,
Dr. Aminah, the audio from the file is a little not clear, but people are seeing the clips.
Yes,
or will be seeing the
maybe.
clips. Sorry.
While we're waiting, oh, hey.
Dr. Aminah, the audio in the original video is a little bit tricky, but people are able to see now. Why don't you speak over it, inshallah?
Well, full screen, no sound.
Dr. Aminah, we are trying to figure out the
I
audio
can't
part.
say what's happening with the sound, but what I can say is that we worked to figure out under what auspices we would bring these various communities together. And one of the things we thought of was have them do an exhibit. Now, exhibits are traditionally put in museums or libraries, but we use the Philadelphia Masjid basement as our exhibit hall. And each community, first of all, spoke and had a display of both their history and the current status of the community. It was a very well-attended event. I have to admit I enjoyed myself tremendously. The imam you see speaking there is the imam of the Philadelphia Masjid. And many of the people contacted me later. It's the first time they've been in the same space together. Even though members of all of the communities migrate between communities to attend events. And that has been one of the wonderful things about Islam in America, is that the historical cleavages between Shia, Sunni, and Sufi Muslims are here because the people who were raised in those cleavages are here. But amongst the African American community, they're not so deep. People from the Ahmadi community have married people from other communities and vice versa. And I know we're going to have one of the panelists that's sitting there talk about Ahmadi in America. And many African Americans had their first real introduction to the Quran through the Ahmadi community. The man you see speaking here holds one of the largest collection of memorabilia of Muslims in Philadelphia. And this was just a wonderful event. Hopefully sometime in the future, people can figure out how to do it again. The plaque you saw the man presenting before was BAMI presented a plaque to Kenny Gamble, who in the community is a community leader, but he was also the founder and producer of Gamble and Huff Records, who was responsible for a lot of the Motown records that you hear. The lady you see speaking is a Muslim who belongs to the armed forces.
Veterans Committee.
And is representing the veteran Muslim community, which was a treat for many of us who don't think of that.
Commander Keel.
Huh?
Commander Keel.
Can't hear you.
Commander Keel.
So this was good.
Yeah, the Imam is saying this is Sister Teal Baker Ellington, who was a commander.
Yeah, but that was a treat that we kind of did not expect. So we can go to the next one. Maidan and Abu Sulayman Center were gracious enough to include BAMI in their engagement with graduate students in books. I got to listen and hear these wonderful students' reviews of books, and you know, their position and their take on some issues, and this was really great. We had one upper class undergraduate student that we included in this, and she was really challenged, which was great. But if you haven't, those out there listening, looked at the graduate student book review colloquium, if I'm not mistaken, and Ahmet can tell me, they have them every year, but it inspired us also to hit another generation. And because one of our target audiences was in Atlanta, we did a student engagement for high schoolers. And we chose a bunch of books, and Asenor helped me get those books sent to Atlanta. It was a reading competition. Students were asked, the books were written by African American authors and African American Muslim authors on specific topics. They were given 2 workshops to learn how to review a text. We learned a lot from this engagement. It was fun.
Dr.
As I said,
by the way, we have about 5 minutes.
okay, as I said in the beginning, much of, not all of, because the physical presence of Islam in America is mostly in terms of masajid. And there's some beautiful ones across the country. We also, in BAMI, interviewed folks, some who have died since we did these interviews, but you can go on Maidan and listen to the interviews. Some of them are hilarious. We've had convenings because there was a lot of issues that arose between imams and chaplains. Like, what is a chaplain? Chaplains don't exist in the Muslim majority states, but they do in Christian states. So for many, it became, well, are these women are jumping into being chaplains? Does that mean they want to become an imam? Well, no, they want to be chaplains as a profession in universities and prison system and hospitals and everywhere. And this convening made the distinctions clear. And you can also listen to this at Made-Up. We had a convening on Can We Trust the Media? Malika Bilal is a regular worker for Al Jazeera. Aisha Mustafa is a BAMI advisor, but she also runs the Muslim Journal. And Rashida J. Saida runs a lot of, or contributes, let me say, to a lot of Black newsletters. We had to talk about campus dissent, and with that, we were joined by, let me see, I don't remember his name, Bassem Haddad, who's the man second from right to left, and leading us because campus dissent was all over everywhere. And we needed to talk about it, how it was being reported or not. Last one. We still needed to talk more between leaders and scholars and the community about ideology, Muslim identity. So we did this one on paradigm shifts. And I'll quickly go to the next one. The last one. Yes. Upcoming, we are doing in collaboration with Aisha, Abu Sulayman and BAMI, Pillars, and a number of other places are supporting in the shadow of Malcolm X, Islam and the Black radical tradition in Dakar, Senegal. Please register. I think you will tremendously enjoy it, and I will be quiet now and wait for any questions at the end. I give a welcome to my fellow panelists, although I can't see them yet, and thank you, Ahmed and Robert, for running this.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Aminah. We'll get questions at the end of the panel. Appreciate your patience with the technical hiccups. In a hybrid conference, some technical problems are expected despite Robert's best effort. This is all on me. All right, so our next speaker in this panel is Halide Rumeysa Küçüköner from George Mason University with the title The Creation and Preservation of Distinctive Ahmadi American Ahmadi Heritage. Dr. Küçüköner, as I mentioned, is a visiting scholar here at the center. She's an academic specializing in Islamic traditions in South Asia, the interpretation of Islam across different geographies and cultural Islam. She serves as an associate professor at the Faculty of Theology at Dicle University in Turkey, where she also earned her PhD. For the past 2 years, she has been a visiting scholar at the Abu Sulayman Center for Global Islamic Studies, and she has been awarded a scholarship from the Scientific and Technological Research Council of Turkey, as well as student and academic grants from the Erasmus Exchange Program. Dr. Küçüköner, please join us. You can, yeah, why don't you come over here? Sorry.
everyone for your sharing your times. Today it's my pleasure to talk to you. Today I will talk about the Ahmadi cultural heritage in United States. We know Ahmadi Muslim community especially has built a strong and unique identity in the United States. Oh, thank you so much. Especially its story is shaped by faith, history, and life in the United States. In my presentation, I try to explore especially how Ahmadis created a special identity over the time and how they kept their faith, culture, and traditions strong. Oh, I'm sorry. It's okay. Let's look at the Ahmadi history in the United States. Especially when we talk about the Ahmadi history in the United States, we should understand that it is very related to Islamic history in the United States, especially in the early 20th century. Because we know that Islam didn't arrive the United States with the Sunni and Orthodox movement. We know that Islam arrived to the United States with the modernist movement and especially the other Sufi movement. And these movements represent Islam as a understanding, not especially the standard version of Islam. They try to represent the Islam as a normal way for especially the proper way, the United States lifestyle. And one of these groups who did that modernist movement was the Ahmadi Muslim community. And they came to the United States for sharing the Islam, for spreading the Islam. And Ahmadis are so proud of themselves because they think that they are the first reverse movement to the Western countries, because they think that always, especially Western people, came to the Eastern countries, and after that Ahmadis came to Western countries to spread their religion. And let's look at this picture. This is the historical context of Ahmadi history in United States. This picture is of Mufti Muhammad Sadiq. He is the first missionary who came from Indian subcontinent to the United States. He came to United States in early 20th century. He first came in New York. After that, he came to Chicago and he opened a masjid. This was the first story of United States of Ahmadiyya. And he opened a masjid. This masjid is called as a Wabash Masjid because it was located on the Wabash Street in Chicago. It is first aimed especially the marginalized group for Black American people, because in that time, especially there are many missionary movements from Christian movement, but this was especially the Islamic movement, especially their aim was the African American people. He found that masjid, and that masjid, it was so interesting because it was opened for all religious members. And Mufti Muhammad Sadiq declared that masjid as this masjid open for all religious members, Christians, Jewish people, Hindus, Buddhists, can come here, can pray, can eat, can rest here, and you can create a sense of belonging here. After that, this invitation and accepted by many people, especially the African American people, started to come that masjid. But it is really, unfortunately, it is really very sorry for me. This is the new version of that masjid. It is the renovated, it is the rebuilt. Now, especially, it is the loss of cultural heritage, really. It is located in Wabash Street in Chicago now. This picture is very important because in that time, Mufti Muhammad Sadiq, he didn't preached especially the Ahmadi Islam. He is focused especially he preached for only Islam. He didn't mention about the differences between the Ahmadis and Islamic tradition. This is the key point, I think. And he always focused on especially for the African American people, Islam's racial equalness and social justice. You know, these are the very key point, key term, especially for the Black African American communities. After that, they started to become Muslim. But we have to understand that these are not, especially in that time, these are not for only Black American people started to become Muslim. And especially there are many different people, different from ethnical background, especially white comers, South Asians, Arabs, Persians, Turks, Albanians, and Yugoslavs started to become Ahmadi Muslim. But in that time, as I said, there is no difference between the Ahmadi Muslims or Muslims. They only called themselves as a Muslims. And in that time, you see that this is the Muslim sunrise. This was the picture of the Ahmadi newspaper, and after that, it's a kind of magazine. And this is the cover of that newspaper. And it always focused on that Ahmadiyya was the first multiracial movement in United States. Thank you. And these ladies are very important because especially until 1930s, we know 10,000 African American people became Ahmadis, and these pictures are always shown, especially you see the ladies in the middle at the bottom, the ladies who cover their all bodies. When especially Black American Muslim history mentioned about that, these pictures are generally shown, but these ladies are Ahmadi Muslims. Some scholars ignore, they only quote about the Islam, but Muslim, but these are really Ahmadi Muslim. And this picture is very important for Ahmadi history, Sister Mubaraka Malik, because she was invited from the White House and she met with the President Gerald Ford and she presented him a Quran. This was a very important and very significant date for Ahmadi history in United States. And you see a picture from the magazine of the Muslim Sunrise, and especially in that magazine they always focus on the Black American people. You see the two slaves, especially they focus maybe you know, in United States many African American Muslims describes themselves as a Bilaliyun. It especially symbolized the Prophet Muhammad's black companion of Bilal. Because of them, they describe themselves as a Bilaliyun, and after that, in that magazine, they always focus these historical remembers. But when we came to especially the 1930s, it was really a disaster moment for Ahmadi history, because in Ahmadiyya there is two types of leadership. One of them is organizational leadership. It's a kind of secular leadership. Other one is religious leadership. Religious leadership is always, until now, have been held by the South Asian people generally. And organizational leadership can gain for all the members of the community. In that time, especially Black American people started to gain the religious leadership because it was the prestigious one. But especially South Asian leadership didn't share that leadership. After that, many African American Ahmadis left Ahmadiyya and they went to especially other Ahmadi group. We call it Lahori. It is aligned with Sunni tradition and Nation of Islam. In that period, when we talk about like Dr. Aminah mentioned about Nation of Islam is very important for the especially Black American people, and these Ahmadi people went to Nation of Islam, and this was the founder key people of the Nation of Islam. This is the important part of it. And after that, especially black nationalism, with the black nationalism, Ahmadi lost its expansion rate in United States. When we came especially the 1940s, it is very important for Ahmadi history because in that time, even though many Ahmadi left the Ahmadiyya, especially in that time, jazz musicians. There are many jazz musicians. They were Ahmadis. One of these, especially Grammy awarded winner, this is the Yusuf Latif. He is very important Ahmadis in that time. This was the first early history of Ahmadiyya in United States. Let's look at especially post 1965. You know, in United States, this is the turning date for all United States history, because in that time, in United States Immigration Act changed, and United States opened all its doors from all people from all around the world. Especially in that time, South Asian people started to come to United States. One of these groups were the Ahmadis. But when we talk about the Ahmadi history in United States, especially immigrant history in United States, it started after the 1974, because you see this picture is from the Pakistani constitution law, because in that time they were declared as a non-Muslim community in a Muslim community, and they lost being a president in a Muslim country, and it was really disaster date for their history. After that, they tried to find a new place to live. After that, they started to come to United States. This is the historical date for especially immigrant transition to the United States for Ahmadis. But when we talk about turning points of Ahmadis to United States, it starts with after the especially 1984, because in United States, in Pakistan, you know, General Zia, his policy was on the Islamization, and he made a law, and this law banned for all Ahmadis religious rituals, and they couldn't pray. They all lost their ritual life. After that, they officially started to apply for asylum, and they started to come to Western countries. Their first Western countries experience was United Kingdom, because we know in United Kingdom and Pakistan and India there are historical relationship. Firstly, they prefer to go to United Kingdom. Their second step was the United States. And these numbers from the Pew Research Centers, and these are the contemporary numbers. 66% of Pakistani people don't accept Ahmadi as a Muslim. In that time, in 1984, these numbers almost below the 80. And after that, many Ahmadis started to seek for apply. And these are especially in United States Ahmadis. They are really educated and wealthy Ahmadis. They had to come to apply for only, especially preserving their identity, for being afraid of the governmental restrictions on them. And after that, they started to come to United States as a mass, and all United States Ahmadi culture started to transfer with the Pakistani culture. Black American culture lost their cultural expansion on Ahmadi communities. These are the contemporary Ahmadis. Let's look at the 21st century growth and formalization. And we know that there are totally estimated 10 to 20 million Ahmadis all around the world. Especially in United States, we know that 15 to 20,000 Ahmadis. In Canada, 20 to 25,000 Ahmadis live in Canada. Especially they live in Chicago, New Jersey, and Los Angeles. Their headquarters is very close to here. It is Silver Spring, Maryland. This is the picture of their headquarters, Beitur Rahman Masjid, and they manage for all Ahmadi centers from this center. These pictures were taken from the opening this masjid in 1994. These are the history of United States Ahmadis. Let's look at the formation of Ahmadi identity in United States. Ahmadi religious identity. We try to understand when we talk about what is the meaning of Ahmadi religious identity. We can easily say that Ahmadi religious identity is essentially a combination of Ahmadi beliefs with Indian culture. Because religion and South Asian culture are connected each other, strongly connected each other. But when we look at the current Ahmadi identity, it's especially developed under the threat of persecution, especially due to their belief. You know, the Ahmadi's core basic ideas is the continuation of the prophethood, and this is the core belief in Islamic tradition. After Prophet Muhammad, it is not impossible to come someone with any names as a prophecy. But this understanding, this religious background, it has two-sided. One of them, especially, it evolved in Pakistan and other Muslim countries. And we can describe that one, especially this evolved through the practices of dissimulation. In Islamic tradition, we call it taqiyya. It means that Ahmadis had to hide their real belief, especially for the sake of protection themselves. Other one is it evolved in especially the Western countries. We call it as a kind of reactive segregation. It means that Ahmadis segregated themselves from other Muslim societies, and then especially rhetoric on discourse always that other Muslims don't accept us as a Muslims. Because of it, we don't want to be part of this Muslim society. And the same situation for the Muslims, other Muslims, because the other Muslims, especially the umbrella organization, they are not eagerly accept Ahmadis as a Muslim. And this mutual negative perspective created a kind of duality between Ahmadi Muslims and other Muslims. Let's look at this picture. This picture says us a lot because this Ahmadis called this picture as a white minaret. It means that this masjid belongs to Ahmadis. This masjid belongs to Ahmadis. All Ahmadi centers have this minaret, and they say we are different from other Muslims, and it is very important. It's a kind of symbol for them, and this white minaret has in their flag. It's very important symbolization for them. After that, these segregations, Ahmadis makes their society as a closed one, and they exclude others, and especially Ahmadiyya become more closed community in United States. But it is very important for them be part of the global network Ahmadis. They always use for homogenize this Ahmadi identity, especially all around the world. They use the digital a lot. Really? Oh, yes. Okay. For Ahmadis, racial, social, and cultural aspects of American Ahmadi identity in United States. Ahmadis is very important for whenever they go. It's very important to be part of the society. They think they believe, especially in United States experience, they separate two sides. One of them is the coming to America. It means especially the immigrant experience. Other one is the living in America. It means the adaptation to America. They prefer the adaptation to America. They always try to make a balance between the preserving their cultural and religious background and being American. It is very important for them. And let's look at the institutional structure. You know, for preserving their cultural background, the masjids are very important for all Muslims, like for Ahmadis. And they always, it is not for only worshipping place. It's a kind of hub for them. They always try to come together in the masjid for their funeral, for their wedding, for their other celebration, even for their birthday celebration. They prefer to go to masjid. And you see these pictures, and it is so interesting and historically important. And these are one of these masjids is the Fazl Masjid. It is located in DC. It was opened in 1950s. Other one, it is Sisters. It is located in London. It opened in 1926, and it symbolizes Ahmadi's Western colonialism. It's a kind of that one. And in the middle one, first DC located masjid inside of it. It's very important for them. And lastly, we can look at the American Ahmadi's racial background. As I said in the first time, Black American Ahmadis were the dominant, but after the South Asian migration, the situation started to change. But now, especially the Pakistani Ahmadis were dominant, especially Pakistani culture, really dominant for Ahmadi masjids and Ahmadi culture, because of for all Ahmadi masjids, whenever you go, they serve Pakistani food. They even speak Urdu. They wear Pakistani clothes. It is so interesting. Other Ahmadis try to eat the Pakistani food and they wear Pakistani clothes, and it's especially a kind of the transfer the Pakistani culture to the United States. And this is the Ahmadi youth. It is so interesting for me. Ahmadi youth means the Pakistani youth. They are the second and or third generation. They are different from their parents. They speak English fluently and they think critically because of the United States education system. But it is so interesting for me. They don't know Muslim culture. It means that especially because they grow up with especially the negative stories, with their especially transformed from Pakistan to the United States. Because of it, they know only Ahmadi Islam. They don't care about the Islam. This is the difference from other Muslim youth, and their perspective for especially Muslim people is not good. There is a really segregation perspective. Time's over? Oh, okay, thank you. And let's look at the Ahmadi women. Ahmadi women is really significant for transferring the cultural background, because for all Ahmadis, Ahmadi culture means Ahmadi culture started at home. For Ahmadis, Ahmadi culture means Pakistani culture. As I said, because Pakistani culture and religious culture is really integrated to each other. Because of it, they all Ahmadis thinks about that. Ahmadi women are the mediator for this culture to the United States. And I think when I made many interview with Ahmadi women, I noticed that they think about this is really too burden for us. This is really for hard, because all religious background, all things for especially for our back, it is really hard for them. Makes sense for me. let's look at the African American identity in United States, African American Ahmadi identity. Their perspective, they have more liberal perspective when I compare the Pakistani Ahmadis, because their number is really very low now. Especially there is a really big gap between the Pakistani Ahmadis and Black American Ahmadis, because there is a gap between the generations. Older generations easily accepted the Pakistani culture dominance. I saw many older generation people, they wear Pakistani cap and they eat Pakistani food, but younger generation, they said me, we are Ahmadi for being a part of the Ummah, big Ummah, but we are always shared and now have to be part of the Pakistani culture. We don't want to do that. After that, there is a really big gap and tensions between the Pakistani people and Black American people. And Ahmadi leadership noticed this difference between the Pakistani Ahmadis and Black American Ahmadis. They organized, they found an organization, PAMA, and this is first aim is to integrate the American Ahmadi, Black American Ahmadis to the Pakistani Ahmadis. But this is not a solution, because some Black American people, Ahmadis, says this creates a kind of dilemma between us, duality. This is not solution. This creates a kind of duality between us. And lastly, I will mention about the preserving culture, marriage and family dynamics. And in Ahmadiyya, it's very important to community-based marriage. In sociology, we call it as a endogamy marriage. And there's a really big trust. It was really interesting for me when I noticed they are really trusting to the community-based, community-arranged marriage. And they have some rules. Ahmadi man, Ahmadi women only can marry with Ahmadi women, Ahmadi man, but Ahmadi man can marry from outside. And they think they can convert to Ahmadiyya. They can convert to Ahmadiyya. In United States, in the Muslim style, it is different from other diasporas. In United States, there is minimal endogamy because Pakistani people marry each other. Even though I saw some Pakistani families send their kids to Pakistan or India to marry with their family members, but Black American people marry each other. There is a criticism, again, because Black American people think that Pakistani people don't want to marry us, and this is another side of it. Okay. As a conclusion, the American Ahmadi community has built a unique religious and cultural identity, especially through the migration, and this identity continues to grow. Thank you for your sharing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Küçüköner, for this. Our next speaker is Dr. Hale Inanoglu from George Mason with the title Digital Spaces of Cultural Patrimony, Muslim Student Association, Social Media, and the Construction of American Muslim Identity. Dr. Hale is an adjunct faculty member here at George Mason University Sociology Department, specializing in the sociology of religion, diaspora studies, and gender. She earned her PhD in public sociology and a master's in science in conflict analysis and resolution from George Mason University, and holds an MA also in philosophy from Boğaziçi University in Istanbul. She's a qualitative researcher. Her work explores how pious selfhood is shaped within the American religious landscape, with a focus on gender and diaspora. Her dissertation examined how women cultivate religious subjectivity in various social contexts, and her current research investigates how Muslim college students' social media presence relates to their spiritual formation. Inanoglu also has research experience with Christian communities in the US, contributing to broader interfaith insights. She teaches courses on race, ethnicity, gender, and globalization. Dr. Inanoglu, what is this? And if you can let me know when you want me to share this Instagram account. I'll be reading it from here.
Thank you for that kind introduction. This is Hale Inanoglu. I think reordering the panel was a great idea because the Black American experience is what is native to these lands, and then moving on to, although considered a heretical sect, I guess Ahmadiyya and how it interacts with the local population in the United States in terms of the American Muslim population. By the way, Black Americans make up, according to Pew Research Center data, at least 1/3 of the Muslim population. So my presentation is pretty plain because I chose, I guess the whole conference is based on the loss of historical artifacts, memory, and a construction of what it means to restore that. But in this space, I worked with Muslim American students who were born and raised in the United States as at least second-generation Muslims. So they were raised by families who practice Islam for the most part. So all of my participants whom I interviewed, the 15 formal interviewees, they came from family backgrounds with who sent them to Sunday school. Some were homeschooled. Some were basically taken back to their countries for a few years and then came back. So they were raised in Muslim households where religion was a big thing. And so going off into college as 19, 21-year-old students, I was interested in finding out, did something change for them? So now they were free, right? They can live on campus, they can be engaged with the hookup culture, with Tinder, with the swipe culture that we know, right? I mean, that's I have two daughters who graduated college, so they talk to me about these things, and so I learned from them, right? So basically, this is I wrote a paper on how I learned to be a better Muslim through TikTok. And this is an offshoot of that. So help me, give me feedback. I'm just going to, yes, absolutely. So I submitted that to the Religious Research Association. It's under review. I hope it gets published. If not, help me get this launched. So Muslim college students' use of social media. The context, as you know, is the position of American Muslims has become increasingly significant in the social, political, religious landscape post 9/11. Challenges Muslim college students face marginalization and stereotyping, impacting their experiences and identity negotiation. And the objective of this study is to explore how American Muslim college students involved in MSAs use social media to present themselves and navigate their cultural identity. My focus was on MSA leaders. The reason for that is, I didn't want to pick up someone from the street who's culturally Muslim, but who doesn't, who really hasn't embraced that identity. So I recruited my interviewees, especially from the MSA, especially from the leaders. So they were either, president, vice president, they were the sisters coordinator, or they were involved in doing the Facebook pages of their MSAs and all that. So I wanted to see how leadership looked and how it played out. So the literature review, I'm just going to really fast, we don't have as much time. So I'm a sociologist by training, so these three approaches I tried to integrate into the study, but we'll revisit them if we have time in the end in the discussion section. And the research design is grounded in theory. I'm a qualitative researcher. Data collection, in-depth interviews, which lasted from 40 minutes to 2.5 hours. Field observations, whether it's the Friday prayers, like usually on campus, the three northeastern campuses that I did my field work in, they were different, but also had commonalities. So if there was enough funding, the Jumu'ah space would look more like a mosque. If not, it would just be a basement space, right? So if we're looking at what space feels like for Muslim college students in terms of being able to pray, being able to form a community, it depends on the context, basically. And analysis is, grounded theory, and I in particular focused on there is both Goffman, symbolic interactionist theorists, both Becker and Goffman identify a processual form of learning when it comes to identity formation. So it's going to sound really weird, but in Becker's Outsiders, he focuses on how marijuana users become marijuana users in terms of the initial stage and the exploration and how it connects to identity. So in order for any person to stay in a social field or to use something like social media, whether it's marijuana or keep going back to MSA, so in order for any person, the theory is that to stay there, at some point you have to decide if it fits with who you are. If marijuana usage fits with who you are, or if, in this case, social media practices, whether it's spending too much time on social media or looking at content that's not allowed, or posting too often, having too many followers, it has to, at some point, align with who you are. And in this case, it was supposed to align with who they were as Muslims, because I was focusing on their Muslim identity. So I'm just going to focus on some of the findings. So one of the findings that's really interesting, I'm not going to read the whole thing because I want to give the opportunity to our audience here to be able to ask questions to all the panelists. You can read what's up there. This is from interview data. Family influence and early engagement was a necessary but not a sufficient condition for being a Muslim, embracing Islam and saying that I accept being Muslim and I am active and I actively participate in the public sphere as a Muslim. So it was a sufficient but not, it was a necessary but not a sufficient condition. So all of my 15 interviewees, by the way, I did more than 15 interviews, but those were the recorded and integrated into the study. I had informal interviews, with young people beyond the study and even as we go on. The other thing that I'd like to focus on is the transition from passive to active religious identity. So for instance, this person whom I named Mariam, she would, it just shows the transition of becoming a better Muslim. And then Naz, when she became the MSA president, she became more intentional about using social media to engage with the Muslim community. I would share updates about our events, post photos of our gatherings, and really try to amplify the work we are doing. So identity formation is an interactional process that involves both the social institutions and also, agency, some sort of agency at work. And then platform mechanics and identity curation is another finding that I focused on. I won't go into details, but obviously, if you've ever used these platforms, you know that when you click on how to pray, other videos come on, right? Whether it's TikTok or YouTube, so this person who started taking her religion more seriously, she started using hashtags like Muslima and Hijabi to connect with other Muslim women and share her journey. I began to think about what it means to be modest when posting. During Ramadan, I saw so many TikTok videos about fasting and prayer. It really motivated me to stay committed. I follow several Islamic scholars on YouTube, and their lectures have been instrumental in deepening my understanding of Islam. So this person was really interesting. She was raised in a Muslim family. Her mom did not wear the hijab. She went to college. She was on the party scene for a while, and then she decided that she wanted to try the Muslim Student Association. And afterwards, she went to one sister's halaqah and the next and the next. When Ramadan came, she felt, she didn't feel good about what was happening. at the vaccine, you know, and so she said, you know, this is better, this is more ethical, this involves more hikmah, this is ihsan for me. So those kinds of concepts that she learned through her participation in those spaces. And so she decided to wear the hijab. So her use of social media also reflected that. So she took out the photos that were not non-hijabi, and also she put an end to how frequent she posted. So mind you, my sample was gender. You know, it's not genderly in terms of gender. It's imbalanced. I had 10 girls, females, and 5 males, which is, as a qualitative practitioner, you know, women want to talk to me more, which is just my positionality as it is. And also, I think, you know, I think girls use, by the way, girls use Instagram the most in my study, and guys use the game in the study. So it's not generalizable. It's definitely not generalizable, and I need to expand my sample. But this is a qualitative exploratory work where I'm trying to decipher some of the, you know, upcoming themes, emerging themes. So that's why grounded theory is a good way to do this. So beyond family, navigating faith and keeping life halal. So this is a guy who lives on campus from one of the northeastern campuses. First semester of college, I was invited to many parties. Of course, these parties are always about getting drunk. So if you do not drink, why go? It is also about mixing with girls and going crazy. If you can't participate, you'll ruin the party and the mood of the group. So he reflects on the personal cost of maintaining his religious values in the environment, especially given his social nature and the peer pressure he faced. I'm very social and I live on campus. And I'm white passing, since I don't wear the hijab like girls. So there came a point when I had to say no to these kinds of parties and was left on my own in my room. I really wanted to keep everything halal. So the same person also says, I have learned so much about Muslims and Islam through TikTok. For example, it was one of the TikTok videos that refreshed my knowledge about how to do Prophet sujood during the daily prayers. So this is how I became a better Muslim through TikTok example. And then we talked about the moral career framework. I think like this is a good case where a shift happens. So back in high school, I used to use social media, and the last time, I do not remember exactly. Okay, let me explain. I had a bad problem when I did have social media. I would spend way too much time on it. I want to know how many hours. So I asked her how many hours, 8, 10, you know, in high school. Now she spends 4 or 5. So just giving you an idea about how pervasive social media is, and how, if we want to preserve anything in terms of identity or values or ethics, or however you want to frame that, we have to be working with these platforms or institutions, or we have to know the dynamics of these, of what they're using really well. So going on, she explains, and then in college was just the same thing. Where I came to college, I had Instagram, and I remember because the last time I ever posted was September of my freshman year, and I ended up archiving that. I archived all my posts before that, after I put on my hijab. So there came a point where she, you know, obviously she was going through some reflection and was making choices. And obviously, putting on the hijab is not, you know, so not all my participants, 10 females, not all of them were covered. But I think it's a break. I mean, it's at least a symbolic break for the participants, because it is huge to be looking, to be appearing as a Muslim woman who wears a hijab, because it's a stigmatized identity in this context. So it's a huge thing for someone who went to college without the hijab and then chose to do so in that space. After I put on my hijab, and then that was the first post I posted with it, and then the last time I ever posted, so she also stopped posting without, you know, thinking. And then I ended up archiving that too. So she got rid of all the posts, because it becomes a moral dilemma. What do I do with all the years of posts from, you know, age 12 until 18, let's say, and then I switched to a hijabi person, so what do I do with that? And so she stopped altogether. So I was like, this doesn't really represent who I am, right? I was like, why would this be my only post up on my social media account? And so I took it down. So it's just, so one of the critiques that I received for the other paper is, how does being Muslim contribute to their choices in social media consumption? And so what the MSAs do, and if participants are active there through engagement with friends, not just that, but through an identity construction process. You know, the MSAs are talking about halakha or Islamic finance, or they're trying to create a common language. And we can talk about the history of MSAs, which were founded in 1963. There was a first stage of MSAs where the Salafi, Wahhabi tendencies were more dominant, and then the post-colonial studies affected them. So it's a different context now, but it's not, you know, it goes beyond the limits of my study. I'm just going to focus on interview data. And so just to, you know, just for reference, if you're interested in this approach, this is the framework I use. And then also I asked them about Islamophobia, whether they encountered Islamophobia in person or online. They encountered both. Online, it was basically avoidance. They changed, you know, they took down, like, if they were, let's say, so what I found out in the MSA context is, like, especially with the Palestinian crisis that we've been going through, even if you're not Palestinian, like say you're Turkish or you're Egyptian or you're Pakistani, you have a flag of Palestine on your Instagram bio. So when some of the you know, interviewees encountered that kind of aggression, they either let go of the people that they were following who made comments about the Palestinian flag, or they stopped using the social platform for a while. So those kinds of coping mechanisms. But also they did encounter Islamophobia in person, and these two are examples. And the role of MSAs, I mean, MSAs are really an interesting, you know, an interesting structure under which these students from immigrant, basically, backgrounds came together, and in a sense they were trying to be part of the global networked ummah. And so, like, the videos they would watch on YouTube would be Abu Sulayman, Hamza Yusuf. Obviously they had connections with different kinds of mosques, and then speakers at the MSA events were local, but also American, but also at the same time, you know, usually a global ummah kind of perspective, more so than the ethnic specific background. So MSAs are essential tools in expressing religious identity, managing online presence, engaging with both immediate and broader communities. They help students be able to identify as Muslim and offer alternative social experiences where, you know, they don't have to go drink or they don't have to go hook up. I mean, and then. And so their function is really critical in this space. Not apart from the fact that, you know, people go pray Jummah. Obviously, that's a form of identity construction too. I mean, if you're not involved in those kinds of experiences, how are you going to, you know, to know about Muslims, know about Muslim community, experience Muslimness in campus life?
They could come to this conference.
Absolutely, yes.
Rather than checking TikTok.
Nobody ever comes to anything. Yeah.
Yes,
there's Islam happening here.
Right. And so, going back to my literature review, social media is a space for identity construction. Just, you know, On TikTok, there are so many Muslim TikTokers who do story times about the Prophet and his companions, or just little tidbits you might not have known otherwise. So it's really prevalent in our life. So if they're spending so much time, what do you expect? You know, they're going to learn who they are through those platforms. And similarly, when I became an MSA leader, I was much more intentional about using social media to engage with the Muslim community. I would share updates about our events, and so on and so forth. And then religion and digital deprivatization. So I talk about in my paper about the literature review of secularization, you know, what is the role of religion in the public sphere. This is a topic that I'm really interested in. I took it up in my dissertation as well. So I make the argument that there is a form of digital deprivatization which belongs to Casanova. He talks about deprivatization, but I added digital deprivatization. By the way, there are a lot of people studying this kind of engagement, like Heidi Campbell is one of them if you're interested. She studies the Christian traditions. And then sociology of the self and social media. So Ahmed initially used platforms like Instagram and Discord for entertainment. Ahmed later became more intentional about curating his online presence to reflect his religious values. He notes, I definitely don't really open it up to strangers. I talk with people I do not know on Discourse, but years ago I was more open. Now I am selective about who I follow and who follows me. So it's also a coming of age, but the students that I talked to, there was a break between their old selves and their new selves. Obviously, this happens in the space, in the interactive space of MSA engagement and also social media engagement. That's the argument I'm making in this paper. 3 minutes? Okay. So there was gendered expectations and moral negotiation. It was harder for girls, especially because I guess they use Instagram, which is a more visual-oriented kind of platform, right? Girls are just expected on social media to be perfect, and like, well, Muslim girls are expected to just never slip up or do something wrong. So this is also an expectation of the community. So I have 2 daughters and a son, so I get it, you know, it's different, and we talk about these all the time. Aisha, the public relations officer for her MSA and a computer science major, highlights the difficulties of managing both creative content and the ethical responsibility of respecting others' privacy. She reflects on the complexities of content creation, particularly when others' comfort and consent are involved, especially girls. Because like she would take videos of events to post on MSA websites, but then she would encounter resistance. So she had to redo the video, which is, you know, volunteer work. And how many hours does it take to produce like 5 seconds of TikTok or Instagram video? And so the most difficult part about PR is genuinely just making sure people are okay with it because you're putting it out there. There have been many times when I made a video about MSA events and I had to delete and redo the videos because some girls were just not okay with being seen. I love having all these pictures of people, and then when I post it, I will make it into a nice collage and people would like comments on it. So creativity there, although it's gendered, a lot of creativity, and then creativity in identity presentation. Another example is from Ahmed, or they're cooking, and these videos are posted on their MSA websites. Just, you know, playful videos of cooking Ramadan dinner together, or similar events. So my limitations, it's last slide. Lack of diversity in my sample, gender imbalance, focus on the immigrant experience. Obviously the sample size, so I'm looking for funding to expand this study. If anyone knows ways of helping me, really appreciate it. And then implications of social media and the MSAs and like institutions for identity construction. Social media as a dynamic site for the making of the Muslim self. Thank you.